You pick it up. You don't remember deciding to. 1 second your hand is empty. The next it's holding a small glass rectangle, thumb already moving toward the screen. You check it. Nothing new. You put it down. 30 seconds later, you pick it up again. This isn't a willpower problem. It feels like one. It isn't. Your brain is running code that is millions of years old, and that code was never written for a device that fits in your palm. It was written for a much older kind of checking. Checking the tree line for movement. Checking the horizon for weather. Checking a rustle in the grass to see if it was food or something that wanted to eat you. Your ancestors who checked more often survived more often. The ones who stopped scanning, who assumed the world was safe and stayed that way, those genes didn't always make it to you. So here's the real answer. You're not addicted to your phone. You're addicted to information about your environment, and your phone has become the environment. Let's slow down and look at what's actually happening in your skull every time you glance at that screen. There's a chemical called dopamine, and almost everyone gets it wrong. Dopamine isn't the reward. It's the anticipation of the reward. The neuroscientist Wolfram Schultz discovered this in the 1990s while recording individual neurons in monkeys. He expected dopamine to spike when the monkeys got their juice. Instead, it spiked earlier, at the cue that predicted the juice was coming. Once the monkeys learned the pattern, the dopamine moved. It stopped firing for the reward itself and started firing for the possibility of it. Read that again. The chemical fires for the maybe, not the yes. This is why an empty inbox doesn't stop you from checking your email. The checking itself is the hit. Your brain isn't asking, did something good happen? It's asking, could something good happen? And that question is far more addictive than any answer. Decades before Schultz recorded a single neuron, a psychologist named B.F. Skinner ran a much cruder version of the same experiment on pigeons. He put them in a box with a lever. Press the lever, sometimes food falls out. Not always. Randomly. Skinner found something strange. Pigeons on a random reward schedule pressed the lever far more obsessively than pigeons who got food every single time they pressed it. Predictable rewards create calm behavior. Unpredictable rewards create compulsive behavior. He called it a variable ratio schedule, and it remains one of the most powerful behavioral patterns ever documented. Now think about your phone. A text might be waiting. It might not. A like might be there. It might not. Someone might have replied. They might not have. Every unlock is a lever pull with an unknown outcome, and your brain, running the same ancient hardware as Skinner's pigeons, cannot resist an unknown outcome. It was never built to. But why would evolution build a brain this hungry for uncertainty in the first place? Wouldn't a calm, satisfied brain have been safer? Not in the environment your ancestors actually lived in. For most of human history, information was survival. Knowing where the water moved, where the predators hunted, which neighboring group was friendly and which one wasn't, this knowledge separated the humans who lived long enough to reproduce from the ones who didn't. A brain that stopped seeking new information got outcompeted by a brain that kept scanning. The seeking itself, not just the finding, became the trait that got selected for. You inherited a mind that treats not knowing as a kind of danger, and checking as a kind of relief. This is where the primatologist and stress researcher Robert Sapolsky's work becomes useful. Sapolsky spent decades studying wild baboons in Kenya, and one of his clearest findings was this: uncertainty itself, separate from any actual threat, raises stress hormones. A baboon that doesn't know whether a rival is nearby shows more physiological stress than a baboon who knows exactly where the danger is, even if the danger is close. Not knowing is worse than knowing something bad. This sounds backwards until you sit with it. You'd expect the confirmed threat to be more stressful than the vague possibility of one. But an unresolved question keeps the whole nervous system in a low simmer of vigilance, unable to relax, unable to fully return to foraging, unable to rest. A confirmed threat, even a bad one, at least tells the body what to do next. Your phone taps directly into this same unresolved simmer. An unread notification is a small, ambient uncertainty, a rustle in the grass you haven't checked yet. Checking it, even to find nothing, resolves that uncertainty. That resolution feels like relief. Relief feels like reward. And your brain files the whole loop away as something worth repeating. Here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. The people who design these apps know all of this. They didn't discover it independently. They read Skinner. They read the dopamine research. Pull to refresh, the small delay before a like count loads, the red notification badge, these aren't accidents of design. They are variable ratio schedules built by hand, engineered with the same logic as a casino slot machine. Because a slot machine is, structurally, almost identical to a notifications feed. Pull the lever. Maybe something. Pull again. You are not weak for feeling pulled toward this. You have a foraging brain living inside a feed built by people who studied exactly how foraging brains work. Think for a moment about how strange this is compared to almost every other environment your brain evolved in. A forest gives you real information when you scan it. A weather change is real. A predator is real. The feedback matches the effort. Your phone breaks that link completely. You can scan it 100 times a day and get almost nothing back, yet the scanning behavior persists anyway, because your brain isn't actually measuring the payoff. It's measuring the possibility of payoff, and possibility never runs out. A slot machine works the same way. So does checking a stock price. So does refreshing a page during a job application. Any system where the outcome is unpredictable and the checking is nearly free gets checked compulsively, in any species with a brain built like yours. There's a second layer to this that goes beyond simple uncertainty, and it has to do with other people. Humans are, before anything else, a social species. For nearly the entire span of human existence, survival depended on standing within a small group. Being liked meant being fed during a bad season. Being excluded could mean being left behind. Anthropologists studying small-scale hunter-gatherer societies have documented how directly social standing translated into access to food, protection, and mates. So your brain doesn't just crave information about the physical world. It craves information about your social position inside the group. Did they respond? Did they notice? Did I do something wrong? Am I still in? A notification badge sits directly on top of that ancient circuit. It isn't just telling you something happened. It's whispering that your social standing might have shifted, and that whisper is almost impossible to ignore, because for most of human history, ignoring it could cost you your place in the group. So what do you actually do with this? The first shift is simply naming it correctly. This is not a discipline failure. It's an ancient information-seeking circuit reacting to a modern trigger it was never designed to filter. You didn't choose to feel the pull. But once you understand what the pull actually is, the maybe reward of an empty scroll, the unresolved rustle in the grass, you can start treating your phone the way you'd treat any other unpredictable reward system. Not with white-knuckled resistance, but with structure. Turn unpredictable checking into predictable checking. Check email at set times instead of at random intervals, and the compulsive pull weakens, because Skinner's pigeons taught us the opposite is also true. Predictable rewards create calm behavior. The second shift is noticing the feeling right before you reach for the phone. Not guilt, just the sensation. Usually it isn't boredom exactly. It's a small itch of not knowing. Something might have happened. Someone might have written. The world might have shifted slightly while you weren't looking. That itch is not a modern invention. It's the same itch that once made a human ancestor lift their head from foraging to scan the tree line, and it has kept every one of your ancestors alive long enough to become your ancestors. Feel it, name it as ancient, and it starts to loosen its grip almost immediately, because naming a feeling correctly is often the fastest way to stop being ruled by it. There's a third thing worth trying, and it comes straight out of Schultz's original finding. Remember, dopamine doesn't fire for the reward. It fires for the cue that predicts the reward. Which means you can, in a very real sense, remove the cue. Turn the badge off. Turn the color off, so the screen shows gray instead of the red that your visual system is wired to snap toward. Move the apps that spike your uncertainty off the home screen, so reaching for them takes one extra deliberate step instead of one reflexive glance. You are not fighting your own willpower when you do this. You are quietly removing the lever from the box, the way Skinner could have calmed his pigeons by removing the mechanism entirely rather than asking them to resist it. None of this makes the pull disappear completely, and it shouldn't. The same circuit that makes you check your phone too often is the circuit that once made your ancestors notice the changing weather, the missing member of the group, the sound in the dark that meant something was different tonight. You don't want to switch it off. You want to give it something worth watching for. A brain built for scanning a real environment will always find something to scan, so the more interesting question isn't how to kill the urge, but where you're going to point it. There's something strange about ending up here. A behavior that looks so distinctly modern, so tied to glass screens and glowing icons, turns out to be one of the oldest behaviors you have. The device changed. The vigilance underneath it didn't. You pick it up. You don't remember deciding to. But now, at least, you know exactly why your hand moved before your mind did.